Stuka Joe here, and I'm here with Mike Denson, the designer of The Last 100 Yards by GMT, and I'm also with my buddy Christian Snyder. And Christian's later going to play a demo game here. But before they do, let's ask the designer. Mike, this Last 100 Yards, tactical game. There's a ton of tactical games, World War II out there, but yours is different. And I'm going to let you tell the viewers why yours is different. What does it bring to the table?
All right, Jose, appreciate the opportunity.
Sure.
My objective in the game is to model small unit behavior in combat, not necessarily just small unit combat. So what's different in the game, I'll start with the initiative. A lot of games have initiative,
Sure.
But in this particular game, the player winning the initiative, being the active player, he gets a player turn.
Okay.
Where the player that does not have the initiative, the non-active player, he doesn't get a player turn. So he is limited to reaction only, where the active player is not limited.
Okay.
So the initiative as well, if the active player, he'll generally have an initiative modifier. Say for this example, the German has a +2. But he only gets a +2 modifier if he had the initiative on the previous turn. So it kind of represents the momentum that can happen in the game.
I see.
So in the sequence of play, you have the initiative phase to determine who the player is. Then you have the activation phase.
Okay.
If the active player will activate his units by platoon. And when there are 3 squads and a leader typically in a platoon, and he conducts actions which is limited to fire, maneuver, or recover from being disrupted. Each unit gets to conduct a single action. So you activate platoons, and units conduct actions.
Okay.
So when you activate a platoon, each unit can conduct an action. He can either move or fire, or he can try and recover.
Okay.
And once he has conducted, you don't fire at units as they move. They're going to move. For example, this unit may move here, this unit may fire, these units may move, and once that's completed, then you call for reaction from the non-active player. And the non-active player, whatever units he saw conduct an action, he can react to. The non-active player, if he saw an action, could then either react or fire or move. But his limitations are he can't move as far.
I see.
He can only fire at enemy units that did something. Where the active player gets more movement points, he can fire suppression fire, and he can fire at any enemy unit. He's not restricted. So it's a cycle. You activate one platoon, you call for reaction goes back and forth, so it's kind of a simultaneous feel. And then when that platoon activation's over, then you just take the next platoon and repeat the process. So as you fire, the mechanic when you fire at someone, we have green this would be a small arms DRM, which is green. They can be negative or positive. It's a Dyro modifier.
Okay.
You have yellow, which are going to be for any tank fire, and you have red, which is for indirect or mortar fire. And each one has its own special characteristics and effects. Or any tank obviously is only against hard targets such as tanks or vehicles. Your small arms fire is typically just rifles, machine guns, and etc. And your indirect fire would be mortars in this particular case.
Okay.
So when you fire at someone, we'll take an example. This individual unit small arm value is a 1. You have a range of 10. At 3 hexes, it's close range. So if this German unit was to fire at this American unit who happens to be in a building, his value is a 1. the American receives a 2 DRM in his favor for the building. So you would say 1 minus 2 is a net -1. So you would place the -1 marker on the enemy unit.
So the number on the marker is the net firepower or
The net fire effect in this
in that
small
particular
segment.
situation, combat situation. Okay.
So this unit that's received the fire, he is still, being he hasn't taken an action, each unit gets 1 action per game turn. He can still move. He just takes the marker with him. What that represents is that as he's moving, this unit is continued to fire. So he takes it with him. He can return fire, but he's marked with a marker. It means he's under fire, so he's suppressed. So his return fire is reduced 1 for every 2 green or red markers, or green markers, rounded up. So if he had 3, it would reduce his fire by 2.
Yep.
So the fire is not resolved once all the activation is completed. All the units have moved, fired, whatever. When that's all complete, then you resolve the fire. So just a quick example.
And resolve the fire of all the units on the map.
Yes.
At the same
So
time.
give a quick example.
Okay.
We'll just say that in this particular case, we have this type of situation where this individual counter has been fired on twice, and this one twice. So that means 2 separate units is fired, because each unit fires, and for each unit you place a marker. So when it comes time to resolve the fire, you use a 10-sided die,
Okay.
and you're going to roll 1 die for each marker.
Okay.
You're going to take the single most detrimental net result and apply it to the cohesion of the unit, of the unit with the best cohesion in the house. So in this particular case, we'll say that the red die is the -1, the green die is the +1. So we'll roll the die. Okay, so the red die is at the -1, and the 4 is the 1. So 7 minus 1 is a 6. It's equal to his cohesion. It has to be greater, so there's no effect.
Okay.
This is a 4 plus 1 is a 5. It's going to be less than, so it has no effect as well. So in this particular case, we'll do the same thing. The red die would be the -3. The green die would be the 0. So 6 plus 0 is a 6. 10 minus 3 is a 7. It's the greater result. So these are ignored, okay? So it's a 7. In this particular case, if the leader wasn't here, the net 7 would be greater than its 6, and the unit would disrupt.
Okay.
But because the leader's in his hex offering support, his cohesion is greater than 6, so he gets to subtract 1 from the die roll, which now the net effect is 6, so there would be no result.
Okay.
Okay?
That's the effect
So
of the leader.
you conduct all your actions, gives you a simultaneous fill, then you move to the fire resolution phase, which you now resolve all the fire. So you don't get to see the result of the fire.
You only get to see the results of the fire after all units have been committed to their action.
Correct. That's correct. Following the fire phase, or fire resolution, you have assault resolution. An assault in this game occurs when an enemy unit enters a house. And in the example that will follow, I'll show you how the assault works.
Okay.
So in this example, the Germans have the first platoon, which has the little white one, and they have the second platoon.
Got it.
They also have, in this particular example, I'm going to say, they're going to have some mortar support available. It's in the mortar support box, so it's available for the German player to use.
Okay.
Again, we're going to assume that the German player has the initiative. So the first thing I'm going to do as the German player, what I'm going to try and do at this point is I'm going to try and roll the right flank on the American player. So I'm going to put as much fire on this unit as I can prior to my maneuver. So in this particular case, I'm going to activate the first platoon first. So I'm going to take this unit, whose small arms value of 1, at a range of 4, he'll be -1 for range, another -2 for the building, will be a net 3. So 1 minus 3 would be a net minus 1 of fire effect.
Okay.
I'm going to turn this unit to show he's taking an action.
He's taking the action. Sure.
I'm going to take this other unit from the first platoon, and I'm going to do the same thing and fire at the same unit. I'm trying to really put a lot of fire and suppression on this unit. Now I'm going to take Steiner, who's the leader of the first platoon, and he's going to request a mortar fire. Okay? So we're going to place the forward observer in the hex with Steiner, and we're going to pick a target. And we're going to try and isolate this target here occupied by Murphy, American leader. So the German mortar value, base value, is a 2, a plus 2. You're going to subtract 2 because it's a building. So it's going to be a net of a 0.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when a unit is under a red mark or a mortar fire, he cannot fire, he cannot maneuver, he cannot do anything. The only thing he could do is run away.
Okay.
But it's not their turn to react yet. So that is on target. This is a mortar section. So I'm going to get to go 1 additional die roll for the effect. He rolls a 3. So you refer to this diagram here, and if it's a 1, 2, or 3, 4, 5, or 6, it's going to land at surrounding hex. If it's a 7 through 10, it's going to be on target. In this particular case, it lands in hex 3. Okay. So because it did not land in the primary hex,
so you're resolving where it lands, but not the effect yet.
That's correct.
The effect you will resolve after everybody's
That's
committed
correct.
to their action. Okay.
Enemy units cannot enter this hex.
Okay.
So once he's done this, okay, now I'm going to take the other squad from Steiner, and he's going to fire at the American unit in the woods. This unit still hasn't done anything. He's going to fire at the American unit in the woods.
Okay.
And he is within close range, so he's a base of a 1, down 1 for the cover of the woods, so it would be a net 0. And I'm going to take this section, and he's going to move 1, 2. If you're the active player, you have 3 movement points. If you're the reacting player, you only get 2 movements.
Okay.
So at this juncture, we're finished with the first platoon activation. Now the American player can react.
And in this particular example, the Germans have 2 platoons?
They have a first platoon, and they have second.
They have a second platoon, and the Americans, how many platoons they have?
The Americans has 3. They have 1 platoon.
1 platoon, okay.
Okay? So now the American player can react. We're going to take the American second squad. He's going to react to this German section that's advancing on him. Mm-hmm. His fire is reduced by 1 because he's marked with a green marker. He's suppressed. So he's a 1, down 1 for the suppression, but he gets 1 back because the German ended his maneuver within 2 hexes, which is a hazardous move.
Okay.
So it's down 1, up 1. So basically it's a net of a 1.
Yes.
Murphy and the platoon, or Murphy and the squad in the building, they can't do anything. They're under mortar fire. They've hit the ground. They're hugging the ground.
So mortar fire has its advantages. In addition to not hitting anything, just
It
by
pins
place,
the unit.
it pins the unit. Has
Yeah.
that
Right.
benefit.
And they have no line of sight outside of that hex.
Okay.
They're totally done. The American first squad here, he's under fire, but he's not going to take a reaction because the German second platoon has not conducted an action. So he's going to stay and wait and see what this other platoon does. So the American player has finished his reaction, and he calls for reaction back from the German player.
And then, so he's that's like passing. So
this unit is going to pass and wait and see what happens.
he can again
He can
react
react
after
later.
the next German platoon
Right.
goes. Oh, okay.
He can react to any enemy action that he has line of sight to.
Okay.
If he doesn't see an enemy unit do anything, he can never do anything. So you
Okay.
have to see an action. Where there's an action, there's a reaction.
Of course, it makes perfect sense. Yes.
So he passes the reaction. He passes back to the German. The German's not going to react because it's to his advantage to activate the platoon versus reaction.
Okay.
So now he's going to activate the second platoon.
Okay.
The third squad is going to fire on this unit again. Okay, so he's within close range. So he's a base value of 1. -2 for the building would be a net -1. Lieutenant Cope is now going to advance with these other 2 German squads. He's going to send one straight ahead, then he's going to maneuver with the other one. 1, 2, 3.
Got it. Yep.
So the second platoon has conducted its actions. It's going to now recall from or call for reaction from the American player. So now, being this unit has not conducted an action, he can do so now because he observes an enemy action. His fire is, he's a base of a 1, but his fire is going to be reduced by 2 because
For
he has
every
3
2 markers rounded up.
Correct. So he's chosen, he's going to fire straight ahead. So he's -2, but he gets 1 back because the enemy unit ended its maneuver within 2 hexes. So it's -2 plus 1. So it's a net -1. So we'll place a 0 on this unit.
Because of the leader? Net
Well,
-1?
it's -2
Okay.
would take it to a -1.
Yep.
And he gets 1 back.
Oh, 1 back. Okay.
And so it's a 0.
Okay.
So that would be the end of the activation phase. There's no more fire maneuver. So we'll now go to fire resolution phase. So in this particular case, we're going to roll 1 10-sided die.
And the order, who picks the order in that?
It's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant because nobody can do anything, can't react to it.
So normally, whoever the firing unit is, I let him roll that die on the attack. So in this particular case, this German's going to roll, German player. So it's a +1, sorry. The American's going to fire. We'll let him fire first. Yeah, let's fire. So the American's going to fire. He has a +1 on this unit. So we have an 8 plus 1 is a 9, which is greater than the cohesion of this German unit. So this German unit is going to disrupt. So now
And if a disrupted unit, that happens to a disrupted unit, it's eliminated?
if you're disrupted a second time, then you lose a step.
Okay.
Squads have 2 steps, so if your squad takes a step loss, you would take the squad off, put him in a casualty box,
You have another counter for that.
and draw one of these sections or half squads at random.
Okay.
Because not all the values on the squads are the same.
Oh, so there's some squads are better than others
Absolutely,
at
just like
at
real
reacting
life.
under fire.
Absolutely.
Cool. So those go in a draw cup or something?
Yeah, there's generally, for each platoon, you have 3 squads and a leader, and you'll have 4 sections. And then none of them are some may be the same, but they're not all the same.
They're not all the same.
So
Okay.
you would pick all 4 sections up, draw one at random, and replace the unit.
Got it.
Okay. So we'll just work down the line. So this is the fire on the American unit. It's a 0. Okay, so we rolled a 10. Anytime you have a net result of 10 or greater, it's a casualty as well as a disrupt. So in this particular case, we're going to take, just as I explained,
But it has to be a net result, not a natural result.
net.
Net result, okay.
So we're going to take the 4 sections here. We're going to pick one. Just happens to be a poor one. So we'll place this unit in the casualty box, replace him with this disrupted American section.
Okay.
Now we have the mortar fire against this gentleman here. It's a 0, and we're going to make this roll. 0 and 4 is not greater than the cohesion of the best unit and the leader, so there's no effect.
Yep.
Now, these units decided at the beginning to take a withdrawal, that was their only option under mortar fire. If they decided to take a withdrawal, the die roll modifier would go back to the original 2 because they've come out of the cover hex and now they're running an open hex. So instead of rolling for a 0, if he had decided to withdraw, he would roll, it would be a 2, and he'd take the effect, and then he would run away. But in this particular case, there's no effect.
Okay.
There's no effect here. We'll not roll for that. So this one, okay, we have 2 -2s and a 1. So we're going to roll 3 die.
And you pick the most onerous result, the
The
worst
single
result.
most detrimental.
Detrimental, yeah.
We'll do red, black, green.
Okay.
So we have a red. Well, it's not going to matter.
So net 4.
Black and a green.
Net 4.
They're all 60s. I got a Yahtzee.
Yeah.
Okay. So 6 minus 2 is a 4. There's no effect. 6 minus 2 is a 4. No effect. 6 minus 1. If there was effect, if this one, you're only going to take the single most detrimental.
That's the most detrimental, but still no effect.
But first squads was tough. He withstood all that fire. So we have one last result here. We're going to roll for an effect on this German unit. It's a 3. So 3 plus 0, there's no effect. So we're done. So at the end of so we've done with the fire resolution. There's no assaults. So we'll go straight to the cleanup phase. So the cleanup phase, we'll adjust our counters back so we can get started again. Okay, so we're good. So in the mortar adjustment phase, mortar fire adjustment, the German player has the option to extend his fire one time. If he chooses to do so, he would flip the final marker over, and in this particular case, he's going to attempt to do so.
That's like an extra firing.
An extra fire.
And you would do it right now.
Do it right now,
Okay.
right after the
After
assault resolution phase.
Okay.
Okay. So to extend the fire, he needs.
I'm sorry, Mike, and that's based on the rate of fire, based at the mortar.
All mortars in this particular case have an opportunity to extend, but they have different extension numbers.
Okay.
Okay. A platoon to extend the fire because you have so much more fire ammo expended. It's less likely going to be to pack all that ammo back and get a fire off again.
And is there any risk involved for the mortar that you would say, no, I'm not going to take the extended? Or is there any drawback for that?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have to roll a 4 or less to get an extension. If I'm unsuccessful, this marker, the target, is going to come off, but this marker is going to stay on until the end of the next turn. At the end of the next turn, it will be removed to the mortar pending box, and the following turn, he can start rolling to recover. So it's like a 2-turn delay.
I see. Okay.
All right? Now, the other option could be, if he chose not to extend it, he pulls both markers off now, and next turn he gets to roll to get it back. Okay? But in this particular case, we do want to try and extend it because we want to assault this flank over here. So we need a 4 or less. He was unsuccessful in getting the mortar fire to extension, which is unfortunate. So, at the end of the game turn, this is the position of the units. So, we're going to roll for time and see how much time occurred. There's a 5, so you look at the time lapse.
Also, the turns are not marked in stone. You don't know how long this game's going to last.
Each turn could be 2 to 5 minutes.
Oh, cool.
Okay?
That's cool.
So we roll a 3, we make a 5, it's 3 minutes has elapsed.
Let me catch that. Oh, there's a table there. Okay.
Okay?
Oh, I see.
So before we do the next action, I'm going to show you how this works. Okay? So this is a casualty marker. We have an initiative marker. These are minutes and 10 minutes, and these casualty differential markers. So typically a mission will end one of 3 ways. If you have an objective and you've achieved your objective, the mission ends. Doesn't mean you win, it just means it ends.
Okay.
Another way it might end if the casualty marker exceeds a player's casualty differential. It's an automatic win or loss.
Okay.
And the final one is generally let's say for example, you need 35 points or less to win. If you exceed 46, you'll lose.
What kind of points? Victory points?
Yes, and I'll explain that.
Okay.
So victory is based on how much time it takes and the difference in casualties, and I'll explain that. So let's say in my mission, I have to complete my objective in 30 with less than 35.
Within 35 minutes. Oh,
Not just minutes.
Oh,
I have to
35.
have a final score of 35 or less.
Oh, okay.
So final score is based on how much time it took and where the casualty marker is.
Oh, okay.
So I'll show you an example. So let's say that the mission ended with 30 minutes.
Yep.
Okay?
I see.
Well, that's within the 35.
So far.
But the attacking player took 2 more casualties than the defending player. So the small number in the right, if it's positive, he will have to add to his score.
Yeah.
So the 30 plus 6 is a 36. So instead of having a victory, he gets a draw. Okay? Same token, let's say that it's the final score, the mission ended at 38 minutes. But the casualty marker was on the defender's side. So
You subtract.
it's going to be 38 minus 4, okay, drops to a 34, so it's a victory. So a player, the company commander, is going to have to manage his casualties and his time.
Yep.
You can't just lose your whole force and control the building and win the
Yeah,
game.
we took the building in turn 4, but we lost half our men. We lose the game.
Yeah, that doesn't work, okay? So that's how that works. So that's something else that's different.
That's very, very interesting. I like that very much.
So we'll try and play one more
And I have
turn.
just one more question. Okay, initiative is king here, right?
Absolutely.
So how is initiative determined based on what?
Well, it's based on a die roll. At the beginning of the turn, both players are going to make a die roll.
Okay.
And depending on one player or the other, generally the attacker will have a modifier in his favor on the initiative. So if the German in this particular case has a +2, it's going to help him with initiative and maintain the attack.
So depending, I guess the scenario, if you have an attack scenario, you're going to have one side attacking and the other defending. That side's going to have like a plus to its initiative. And then in other scenarios, an encounter, it could be that both sides don't have any.
Both sides have no initiative.
No
Yeah.
initiative modifier.
So it's the momentum's going to change much quicker.
Okay.
Or you could do where both sides have a +2.
Okay.
Where, when I get the momentum, I have it a little bit longer, but then if I lose it, I'm not going to have it longer. Well, the initiative's really key. If I can maintain the initiative for 4 or 5 turns in a row, I'm going to really make hay.
Yeah.
But when I lose the initiative, the German player, it really stunts my ability to do anything. So if we got time, I'll show you one more activation.
Sure.
Okay? So we'll see an assault. For example's sake, we're going to play like the German won the initiative again.
Okay.
Okay? So in this particular case, we're going to activate the second platoon first. So I'm going to take this squad. He's going to provide fire again, suppressive fire against the first squad. So he's going to be a 1, down 2 for the building. 1, down 2 is a net -1. So I'm adjacent, so now I am going to assault. You must always have to begin your assault within 2 hex of the enemy.
Okay.
If you're start adjacent, you're so close that he can't react. So we're going to move both of these units into this hex, in the assault, and we're going to mark it with an assault marker.
If he could have reacted because they started at 2, he could have placed then a marker on those units?
If I had started here,
Yeah.
I would have moved here, and I would have to declare an assault. Okay. Now, because I didn't start adjacent, he has the opportunity to react. So everybody would fire at this unit.
I see.
And once the fire's done, then you would move into that.
I got it.
Okay?
Okay.
But in this case, I got close enough that I did not. So we're going to mark this. So we're going to mark this with a German nationality marker to show that he's the attacker in this assault.
Okay. Nice.
So we finished with second platoon.
Yes.
So now it's the American player's turn to react.
Can he fire into that? I mean,
You cannot fire it into a hex that you have.
That's something the Russians would probably do, and the SS, but not them, not the Americans. No, I don't think
You can't fire in a hex that you have in it. So Lieutenant Murphy sees this, and he's going to react. Murphy has 2 movement points.
Okay.
So he's going to try and reinforce this position over here. So he's going to move to this hex, okay, and he's going to now declare an assault to support that. If I can find the right marker here. Get it up. Now, because he didn't start adjacent, as we just discussed, he's going to
Same
stop
principle
here
applies.
and
Yes,
take fire.
You can take fire.
Okay.
Yep.
This broken squad has not seen an. He actually has. So he observed this action. So he's going to attempt to recover. You rolled an 8. It's greater than his 5, so he was unsuccessful in his attempt.
Okay.
So he's taken his action. Now the German player, if he doesn't react now and he waits to take an activation, he would never be able to react to this again. So if he's going to fire, he has to fire now.
I see.
So what we're going to do in this particular case is we're going to take both of these German units and they're going to fire at Murphy as he's coming by. So they're -1 for the range, so it's going to be a 0. They're going to place 2 zeros on that unit.
Okay.
The German player decides not to do anything with Steiner, and we're going to wait and activate Steiner in his platoon activation. Okay. So being as this second platoon activation is finished, because all this is part of the action and reaction of the second platoon.
Yep.
So now we're going to move Murphy, and I'm just going to set him beside the hex to show that they're all in this hex here together.
Yes.
We're going to move Murphy in the hex, and he takes his small arm markers with him. Now we'll activate the first platoon. We're going to try and recover this section. He rolls a 6. He was successful. Now we're going to take Steiner, and he's going to move 1, 2, 3, and get in position to encircle this unit on the next play. So there's no more reaction left, so we'll resolve fire. So we have 2 zeros on Murphy, so we're going to roll 2 die. We rolled a 9 on 1 0, and we rolled a 6 on the other. So 9 is the most detrimental. It's greater than this squad's cohesion, so he's going to disrupt. If he would have passed, Murphy would not have to take a check, but being he failed, Murphy's going to have to take a check. Murphy's okay because he rolls less in his cohesion. We have a -1 on the first squad. We'll roll that roll. It's a 4. 4 minus 1 is 3. There's no effect.
No effect.
Okay. So now we have we'll resolve the assault. So the small number here in the blue box, white number, is the assault value. So we have a 2 plus 1 plus 2, and they get 1 for the building. So it's going to be 6 for Murphy.
Yep.
For the Germans, we have 2, 4, 5, and there's a modifier where you take your best combat unit, leaders are not combat unit, and you have a differential in the best cohesion. So the German best combat value cohesion is a 7, and the best one for the American is a 6, so you get a +1. So it's going to be 2, 4, 5 plus 1 is 6. So this is a 50-50 proposition.
Yeah.
So we're going to roll a die. The die roll is a 2. 5 or less is good for the defender. 6 or greater is great for the attacker. Okay. So the Germans lost the assault. I don't need it. Okay. Now, the German is going to have to retreat. He has to go at least 2 hexes. So in this particular case, it has to be toward his board edge. We're going to retreat these units back here to this hex. Here. Each one of these units now will have to take a cohesion check. So we'll roll for the leader first. Coke, a 5 is less than his cohesion. He's okay. We'll now roll for this first squad. It's a 1. He's okay. And we'll roll for the second squad. It's a 9. He failed. So now Coke and his 2 squads have been driven back, saved by Murphy's reinforcement of the hex. Now, any unit that did not disrupt the result of the assault, whether attacker or defender, is going to be marked with a regrouping marker, which is a mild disrupt in effect, because they're blown, if you want to call it. I don't know a better word at this moment. Okay, the disrupted is not marked with a regroup because he's already disrupted. So in this particular case, this would be how the final FO marker is moved here, and we're going to now determine time lapse. So here's a dial for time. It's a 5, so it's another 3 minutes. So here, in a matter of 6 minutes, the German has assaulted a few buildings and unsuccessfully in one assault to turn the flank, but they're in good position for the other flank. So how's that do you for?
It's I've never seen anything like it. I really like the uncertainty of the outcome until you go into that resolution and
Right.
and
Well, what I find is not particularly bloody. Not a lot. I mean, there are casualties.
oh, but these are platoons each.
Squad
each counter.
Yeah,
It's a squad. Okay.
But what I find is it like in real combat, you may attempt to take a position 3 or 4 times. So in this case, the Germans are going to have to lick their wounds, recover, and go back and try and take the position again. So there's a lot of back and forth in the game. Once you understand the rules, it plays very quickly because really each platoon action is just a little loop, and you just do one for each platoon. The other player reacts, then you go to the next platoon.
It's very interactive. There's no dead time at all. And how many scenarios does the game bring?
The game comes with 12 missions.
12 missions. Okay.
It comes with 6 double-sided geomorphic maps.
Okay. Okay, so I guess you can design your own missions also.
Well, there's also a design your own mission included in the game.
And there's tanks in the game in this particular
There's armor, and there's, as we've already demonstrated, there's mortar, indirect fire, tanks. So there's several of the missions have combined arms. Some of the missions, especially the beginner ones, are single maps. Some are 4 maps, 2 maps, 3 maps.
I really appreciate the demo. It's going to facilitate my reading the rules and making a video later of the game. And I appreciate it, Mike, and I wish you the best. I know this is... I've never seen anything like this. Christian, you agree, right? Never seen this system, so...
Well, we're hoping maybe as early as August or September we'll do another P500. Our next module will be Airborne, Normandy, and Market Garden. So...
That's great. So thanks a lot, Mike. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Jose. I appreciate it as well.
Okay.
Great.